Yeah, I do. I gotta stop talking. I gotta get in the background here.
Thank you for always being here. My favorite 10 minutes of my life. I was just glad to see you because I didn't know.
Grab a flag and a program.
Yeah, you know why? Because they don't bring them in that way.
Good morning, everyone. We're about to start our remarks, and I'd like to welcome everybody here on this beautiful day. I saw a car with California plates on it. I know this day is very special to many people in Cornwall, and I would just ask people to be aware of our seniors and make sure they have a good view of everything that's happening. It is a very important day going back generations of honoring people who served their town and their country for a very long time. So get comfortable.
What if I just sit on the curb here? Get nice and dirty?
So welcome, friends, to our annual Memorial Day observance. This is a beautiful day to honor the sacrifice of many people over a long period of time. And we'd like to think for a minute why this is all possible, to be able to come out here and enjoy a beautiful day with friends. And it's given to us by a sacrifice going back a long time. This is actually the fourth observance of the weekend in town, following the North Cornwall Cemetery and the Siemens observance in West Cornwall this morning. Yesterday, there was a great ceremony at the Cornwall Cemetery off Route 4, led by Bill Denny and Warren Stevens, rededicating the grave markers of 13 of Revolutionary War veterans in the Cornwall Cemetery. Warren Stevens was there yesterday in militia uniform and is here today. It was 250 years ago that the Cornwall had its own militia, and they were activated by the Continental Congress after events at Lexington and Concord. Over 20,000 militia members from throughout New England went to aid their comrades outside of Boston. One person who answered the Lexington alarm was John Slade, who was buried in the Cornwall Bridge Cemetery. Cornwall had over almost 200 soldiers involved in the American Revolution, which is an extraordinary number for a town of only 1,500 people, about the same population as today. That wasn't an accident. There was a well-trained militia. Most able-bodied people were expected to be involved in the militia. The Cornwall militia members had gone up in the French and Indian Wars to Canada to fight with the British. But there was also, especially in Connecticut, a very strong tradition of independence. And it's fitting that we are sitting here, or I'm standing here underneath the sign of the Charter Oak tree, which is a great story that in the 1600s, the King of England wanted the Connecticut Charter back to impose imperial rule on the colony of Connecticut. The legislature did not give it up to the king, and they hid it in a hollow oak tree in Hartford. And this tree is a scion, a descendant of that oak tree, which is very important to Connecticut history, establishing Connecticut's independence from the crown. Not entirely, that would take another 100 years, but there was that strong feeling of independence, and many of the soldiers that served in the Revolution from Cornwall and throughout New England were of that tradition. So it's great. This tree was given to the town and dedicated 60 years ago by the Gannett family in memory of Lewis Gannett, who was a very famous author, wrote Cream Hill, great Cornwall book, and here it is to give us shade and a sense of the past on this Memorial Day. Just to talk a little bit more about what was going on at the time and Cornwall's early role in the Revolutionary War. Before independence was declared in 1776, already Cornwall grown Ethan Allen and his brothers, who at that point were up in Vermont, joined with other members of the Connecticut militia and stormed Fort Ticonderoga in New York State, overpowering the British garrison in the name of the Great Jehovah and the Continental Congress. That was the first victory for the Americans in the Revolution, and there was a Cornwall person right going over the top. They didn't wait. They were bold. They knew what they were doing, and the cannons that they captured were very instrumental when they were hauled across Massachusetts and relieved Boston and from the English army. So again, this is even before Declaration of Independence in 1775. There were Cornwall participation in the Revolution. Next year, we plan a lot of events to commemorate the 250th anniversary. We have a committee that's working on it with the Historic Society, and there will be events to highlight people's roles here, to tell the important stories, and I think there'll be something for everybody there in a year-long celebration of our town's role in that important event. I think it's also important that we realize that the gifts that we were given from these people, as far as the ability to elect our own leaders. One of the first things the first settlers in Cornwall did in 1740 was to have a town meeting where they elected their own leaders. which wasn't happening in many places of the at the time, and it's not happening everywhere now. So again, I think some of those people would be pleased to know that Cornwall had the highest voter turnout of any town in Connecticut in the last election. So give yourself a good patriotic round of applause, because all those freedoms were hard fought and they need to be exercised today as much as they did 250 years ago. We would like to thank today our Veterans of Foreign Wars who have gone out. Skip and Kathy Lush have gone out and decorated hundreds of graves throughout town to our veterans. We would also like to thank our CCS band under direction of Alicia Simonetti-Spur, who's been doing this and giving us great music here and showcasing the excellent education at the local school and the talents that are fostered there. And she's been leading this event for the music part for almost 30 years. So thank you very much. And there's some alumni members there filling out. Because the musical gift is something that stays with people a long time. So thank you to the band and the buglers that are here to help make this such a special event. And I'd also like to thank our fire department ambulance squad. They are our current Minutemen and Minutewomen who respond quickly to today's emergencies. So let's give them a hand. And thank you all for coming to this event and participating in this. And this is especially great to see people from all corners of town. The town doesn't get together on this scale very often, but it's always a very enjoyable time, memorable time when it does. And I know there are people that come back to town just for this event because it means so much to them. And I'd also like to thank the citizens of this town that are in uniform right now, protecting our country and keeping that chain of national service intact from the country's very beginning. So even though they're not here, I would like to give them a special round of applause. So now it's my great privilege to turn the program over to Dave Cadwell. As you may see in your program, he's doing a lot today. Especially he's giving an address. I think probably a lot of people here might have been here 20 years ago. Do people remember his address 20 years ago? I see Susie was here. It's a high bar to address your community. And David gave an exceptional speech 20 years ago about his service in Vietnam that went on to be immortalized in Tom Brokaw's book, Boom. And Dave has some 20-year reflections. Tom Brokaw also, people may remember or not, gave some of his preliminary remarks that before he actually published his Greatest Generation book, he previewed some of his remarks right here on this space. And again, we give tribute to some of the people, that whole generation, because 30 years ago we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the end of World War II, and at that point there was over 40 Cornwall veterans here, and unfortunately they've all departed since that time. But again, a huge percentage of the town participated in those monumental efforts to overthrow tyranny and preserve our freedoms. So again, there's a pattern here that's all weaved into a Cornwall fabric. And so with that in mind, I will give you Dave Cadwell, a key part of our fabric.
Thank you, Gordon. I'm going to add just one more thank you, just because he's always here and always doing this. And you might not realize this, but in preparing for this, I talked to a lot of people who just can't make it here today. They live far away. And it's always reassuring to let them know that Richard Briggs is here recording all of this, and I can pass this on to them. So let's do this thing. As Gordon said, our school band is here with alumni. Alicia's been doing this for going on 30 years. So let's all stand for the singing of America the Beautiful. Invocation, the Reverend Mickey Nundle.
Let us pray. Gracious Creator, Guardian, and Guide, we are grateful for this beautiful day in this wonderful community. This morning we remember all those who served their country, and especially those from wars who did not return. Help us, O God, to imagine a time when there are no wars, a time when swords become plowshares, and we live in peace. Be with us now in this ceremony. Amen.
Thank you, Mickey. I'm so glad Gordon pointed out the folks that are serving us. It's, I think, a single percentage or so of our population. And please don't forget, they weave the blanket of security we sleep under every night, and we should be very grateful for their service. Now let's all do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh my gosh, the address. Now don't think I'm recycling an old speech. It was just the first draft, but I've had 20 years to improve for you folks here today. 3 weeks and 20 years ago, Gordon asked me to give this speech. He knew that I'm a Vietnam War veteran, and that it's been over 50 years since I served there. Now for me, taking on a speech like this is a pretty daunting task. But taking on Vietnam has reopened old files of memories that have been locked up for decades. It dawned on me that for anyone under the age of 40, I'm looking at you kids, that this is history, not the actual experience that divided this nation in the memories of us that are older. After all, this is the war that brought to our language such terms as body count, search and destroy, and quagmire. For the past 50 years, far wiser voices have preceded mine today, attempting to make sense of why we fought this war without much clarity. So, I would like to make it clear from the beginning that I'm going to talk about my experiences that led up to one day, the worst day of my life. and that I was just one of over 3 million who served in Vietnam. It is my hope that my story will focus our thoughts on what this day is all about. Since this country was founded in all the wars that we have fought, the only land that we have asked for is the plot of land to bury our dead. I'll bet many of you are wondering why I'm speaking today. And the fact that I served in Vietnam is news to you. I have spoken to many of my fellow Vietnam War veterans, including men listed on the monument here. And we agree that we're anonymous veterans. Unlike our parents who fought and won World War II, who changed the course of history, who Tom Brokaw has justifiably defined as the greatest generation, I think our lives were best summed up by a quote from the film Platoon. But be that as it may, those of us that did make it have an obligation to build again, to teach others what we know, and to try with what's left of our lives to find a goodness and meaning to this life. It did not mark a high point in our lives. It's just another chapter, one we more than likely wanted to forget. We became the guy who makes your shaker furniture, the guy who repairs your frozen pipes, or became an emeritus professor, the guy who plows your driveway, or one of the guys who shows up in the middle of the night to put out your chimney fire. Whoever it was who said that it was unending hours of absolute boredom punctuated by moments of sheer terror described my tour in Vietnam. I was 19 years old. I couldn't vote or buy a drink. I entered the Army as a conscientious objector who was willing to serve, which meant that I didn't carry a gun, and they made me a medic and assigned me to the guys with all the guns, the infantry, specifically the 1st Cavalry Division. Instead of horses, we rode in helicopters. This was the unit featured in the film Apocalypse Now, though we didn't go surfing or play Wagner. It was the summer of 1970, the Vietnamization of the war, when we were attempting to turn over the operations to the Vietnamese. The general attitude was that no one wanted to be the last one to die. So instead of going on search and destroy missions, we went on search and avoid ones. I was assigned to be Doc to the 1st Platoon of Alpha Company. We were commonly referred to as grunts, 15 to 20 guys from all across America. We would go out on jungle patrol for 3 weeks at a time, get back to the landing zone, and then right back out to the bush again. Under these 24/7 conditions, you really do become a band of brothers. Some months later, I was promoted to be the senior medic of Alpha Company, which meant that I traveled with the captain, his radio operators, and our artillery lieutenant. Our captain was Johnny Newton Ward Jr. of Sarasota, Florida. He was a man of 27 years commanding a company of 18 to 20-year-old boys. He was intelligent, caring, and most importantly, ever mindful of the safety of Alpha Company. On January 16th, 1971, while we were engaged in a firefight, we were accidentally hit by our own artillery, killing 4 and wounding 11. Curiously, the same number of casualties at Kent State University just the year before. Captain Ward was killed, along with 3 others that included the medic from the 3rd Platoon who we were traveling with. It was clearly the worst day of my life. It is not necessary for me to go into the details of that day here. Tom describes them in his book. Suffice to say that after surviving that day, it made my entire rest of my life more of a downhill journey. 3 days later, we met up with my old buddies from the 1st Platoon. They knew that Captain Ward was dead, along with a medic, and they assumed that it must be me. I relive that reunion with my band of brothers every Memorial Day. I had come back from the dead in their eyes while I was still wearing the blood of our captain on my fatigues. Their unqualified elation of seeing me alive lifted me out of the depths of depression of wondering why I could not save the lives of my 4 friends and why it was them and not me. So, I stand in front of you all this Memorial Day as someone who has returned from the dead, speaking for those we memorialize today, to remind you what is so obvious. It is good to be alive. And even better when you take the time to remind each other. Some years ago, I tried to get in touch with Captain Ward survivors to pass on some pictures I had of him, only to find there were none. I did get to speak to several of his friends, including his wife's best friend, who informed me that 10 years following his death, Joy Ward took her own life. She told me that Joy had not remarried and was never the same after her Johnny's death. So, I would like to dedicate my words today to my captain, Johnny Ward Jr. Give me just a second. This guy right here. And his wife, Joy. His name joins the 58,202 names on the Vietnam Memorial Wall. But where do we put Joy's name? And the countless others who suffer along with those we memorialize today. It is difficult to make sense of these events that happened to me, my fellow veterans, our country, and the nation of Vietnam. Far greater minds than mine have yet to answer the question, why? I've come up with some answers for me. This experience allowed me, when we moved here in 1987, to join the Cornwall Volunteer Fire Department and Ambulance Squad. And I found a new band of brothers and sisters. It has allowed me the privilege to help serve this wonderful town of Cornwall for the past 38 years, a town that has embraced me and my family in a similar fashion that the first platoon of Alpha Company did on that January day 54 years ago. It has allowed me to fulfill my most important role in life to my daughter Megan and her twin brother Weston. It's most appropriate for me to deliver this, it was most appropriate for me to deliver this speech 20 years ago because Meg and Wes were the same age I was the day that Captain Ward was killed. I am very grateful that they do not have to face what I did. And I would be even more grateful if our leadership would learn from these experiences before sending anyone else to give their last full measure for our country. And finally, it has allowed me to put that worst day of my life back in that file and replace it with today, one of the best, where I got to ride in the parade with the old geezers, the beloved veterans, my pals, Hunt, Bill, and our driver Tom, wherever you are. I got to share my story with you, my friends and neighbors. And now I'll make one final request. For you to ask a veteran in your life to tell you their story. I was silent for over 30 years until Gordon asked me to tell mine 20 years ago. I'm grateful for you all for listening to mine again today. Thank you very much. Okay, we got the fun part to do now, right? The Cornwall Post 9856 of the Veterans of Foreign Wars 2025 Award for Community Service is going to a citizen who I can safely say has 95% approval from this town that I will explain when I close. Our recipient was born in New Milford and raised in Gaylordsville and dragged to Cornwall in 1978 due to marriage. A marriage that has produced 3 children and 3 grandchildren. A devout member of the St. Peter's Lutheran Church, a scout leader and worker at Mohawk Mountain, has served Cornwall for the past 30 years on various boards, including Park and Rec, Planning and Zoning, and the Child Center. Since our town's founding in 1740, there have been 20 town clerks. And for the past 20 years, ours can be recognized like Cher and Madonna and Beyonce with one word, Vera. This is an elected position, and for the past 10 elections, both parties have endorsed Vera. And let's say 1,000 people voted, and Vera would get 950 votes. I'd always ask myself, who are those 50 people who didn't vote for Vera? She has been married to Bill for the past 46 years, which alone qualifies her for this award. It is my honor to present the 2025 VFW Citizenship Award to Vera Deneen. I just told Vera the best thing about that award, she doesn't have to give a speech. All right, we're moving on to the true reason for today, and that's to remember the veterans that we've lost in the past year. We have 2 gentlemen we're going to remember. Excuse me just a second. Starting with Charles Richard Dickey, Captain, U.S. Marine Corps, died June 23, 2024. Charles, known throughout his life as Chick, was a lover of classical music, horseback riding, and French cuisine that he enjoyed discussing with our neighbor Erica Prudhomme. He possessed a lively intelligence and sharp wit, and was an avid reader with a particular interest in World War II and American history. Chick was born in Panama, the son of an active duty Army officer who led his family from Panama to Guam on to Japan just before the war. Then on to New York, San Francisco, Minnesota. He spent 2 years of high school in Paris, and finally back to Washington, where Chick graduated from the St. Albans School. After completing his BA at Yale University, he served in the Marine Corps at Camp Lejeune. He went on to earn his law degree from Columbia University. Chick practiced as an attorney at several law firms and spent his first 10 years practicing at Paul Weiss, and served as general counsel to Madison Square Garden. A longtime resident of North Salem, New York, he moved to West Cornwall in 2021 with his loving partner, Janine Salindi, and their 2 West Highland White Terriers, his 85th birthday present, Bramble and Festa. Chick had 5 children, 8 grandchildren, and 9 great-grandchildren. Gerald Scott Schofield, Sergeant, U.S. Army, died December 9th, 2024. Gerald, who was known by his friends as Jerry, was born and educated in Pound Ridge in Westchester County, New York. He served with the 82nd Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles, at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Those are the guys who jumped out of the airplanes and quite literally the tip of the spear whenever we have to send troops. He came home and served on the Pound Ridge Police Force for 25 years, where once again he was a sergeant. He then went on into construction and eventually became a stonemason. He practiced his craft throughout Westchester County and the tri-state area, working on dozens of properties, including for Martha Stewart, Richard Gere, and Mariah Carey. In 2001, he and his wife Linda came to Cornwall and built their Stone Bridge Meadow Farm on Great Hollow Road, where they board horses. He built 5 fireplaces, patios, walkways, and stone walls, and an assortment of boulders, and obviously a stone bridge. They have skied all over America and Europe and went scuba diving in the Caribbean. They love to dance, something Linda does in competition, and Jerry would take the pictures. Linda told me that Jerry would talk to a blade of grass if it would listen. Jerry had a son who served in the Marine Corps and a daughter, 3 grandchildren, and 1 great-granddaughter. I think Gordon summed them up perfectly. They came to Cornwall and built their dream house. Jerry was a man who explored the sky, land, and sea, just as many of the veterans we are remembering today. Please ask them to tell you their story. Thank you. Is there a firing squad?
Company! Salute! Company!
All right, now let's sing the Star Spangled Banner. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you all for coming. Now let's go enjoy the carnival.
And that's it for the Memorial Day ceremony in Cornwall Village 2025. Goodbye.